I popped open the container and with the help of a friend, threw all its contents into Vortexia as quickly as I could. They came pouring out, and to my surprise, there weren't just 500 workers. The colony was easily a couple thousands. I shut the door, trying to ignore the excruciating pain of stinging weaver ants all over my arms. I turned the key to lock the weaver ants in. It was a painful venture, but before I knew it, they were in. Thousands of weaver ants scrambled up the vines and spread out into the dense expanse and foliage of Vortexia. I was awestruck, watching them carpet all landmarks of what was now going to officially be their kingdom. I stood speechless at the sight and couldn't look away as the mighty weaver ants rushed all areas of Vortexian territory. It was a marvelous sight to behold, seeing all the weaver ants filling the territories. But what I saw next truly moved my soul. Look! A pupa! The ants have started to move in the brood, which means tonight, AC family, the weaver ants begin the official move and construction of a leaf nest. At last! This was going to be epic. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. I can't believe we had done it, guys. The great weaver ant colony was in. Over the past few days that they'd been with us, I never imagined the colony was this big. The workers poured out from the openings in the mother nest and marched down the branches as they stepped out into the foreign territories we had constructed for them. This was the start of an amazing adventure for the ants and for us, AC family. But there was just one problem. There were ants that were loose on the outside. This was obviously not good, not only because these ants pack a painful bite and I didn't want them running all over my condo, but also because these outside ants were as good as dead without the rest of the colony to integrate with for everyday vital activities like feeding, communication, and seeking of proper shelter. So I knew I had to catch these stragglers for their own good and mine. So I took the container in which the weaver ants were given to me, which I knew still had weaver ants in them. I took some baby powder and covered my gloves in as much of it as possible, then popped the lid open and smothered the baby powder all over the inside of the container. This baby powder layer would make the walls of the container slippery for the weaver ants, which would help keep the escaped ants much more easily contained. I then swept up as many escaped ants as I could into the container and spot-picked every individual loose ant I saw. Get over here, little one. I won't hurt you. I then connected the container back to the whole setup so they could all reunite with the main colony. Speaking of which, if you're new here, welcome to the canopy of Vortexia, a fully automated, high-tech, climate-controlled tropical ant kingdom we've constructed for this new weaver ant colony, joining our antiverse. And my, are our weaver ants just loving it. Now that they were in here, I could really take a good look at the colony as a whole. The first thing I noticed was the size variation in weaver ants. There were really large workers and really small ones. Each of these workers were born this way. In this case, the extremes wouldn't be called supermajors and minors, like in our titans for instance, because their body shapes and proportions are generally the same. They're just different sizes. At the moment, the ants seemed pretty preoccupied with exploring the new space. It was just breathtaking, watching them traveling on every landmark of Vortexia. Check them out. thing that excited me the most about all of this was watching their trails leading to this main site here on the Oecophylla plant, where the ants had decided to set up their leaf nest, evidenced by their clear storing of the brood. You can see the white pupae there. Now, if you're new to weaver ants, boy, are you in for a treat. What makes these ants super famous, as far as ants go, is their treetop lifestyle and their impressive and unique nesting behavior. So get this, these ants create massive leaf nests like hanging baskets, using the living leaves of the trees they nest in. The silk produced by their larvae are used like glue to fuse a grouping of leaves together to form the nests. Today, you'll get to see the entire process of how these leaf nests are constructed, including the quote-unquote weaving process of these famous weaver ant leaf nests. And trust me, the footage will blow your mind. So do keep on watching until the very end. Now check this out, AC family. I also noticed that the ants were trailing here, which I followed to this area up here, which then led down to this area here. And what lay at the end of the trail truly surprised me. Look! The ants seem pretty interested in this money tree as well. Could the ants be thinking of building a second nest? OMG, wouldn't it be cool if the weaver ants decided to create 2 leaf nests here within the canopy of Vortexia? It would all be up to the ants, of course, and whatever they collectively decide as a colony. But I just couldn't wait to watch their nesting building process from scratch. Now, EC family, as exciting as all of this was, what I saw next shocked me and turned all feelings of excitement to those of great worry. So guys, watch this. I followed a trail down to the forest floor towards the busy mother nest. Ants were cleaning up the pupae that had scattered when I literally had to dump them into these lands from within their carrying container. I kind of felt bad that I had to do so in such a manner, but if you recall in our last video, this immediate transplant needed to be done in order to get the ants to move in here before the dreaded Pharaoh ants could claim these territories. Pharaoh ants would have spelled certain death had the weaver ants not claimed these lands theirs first. And we on this channel know how pervasive and deadly these Pharaoh ants can be. So with all these weaver ants now in, the weaver ants had enough war power now to keep the Pharaoh ants at bay. They just had a little cleanup to do after their great dump. But it seems the great dump may have been the biggest mistake I've ever made. For laying in the shadows near the nest, I also spotted this. Oh no! Is that who I think it is? It was a queen weaver ant. A queen weaver ant with no wings, hanging lifeless from a few branches of moss. Oh no! Was this the colony queen? Was it possible she was killed during the rough dumping process? If so, this was terrible. But I had to take a deep breath to assess the possibilities. After gathering my thoughts, I realized there was actually still hope for the colony. Because first off, weaver ants are polygynous, meaning they can have more than one queen in the nest. So even though this may be an egg-laying queen now dead, there could still possibly be another one, or more than one, still alive somewhere in here. Plus, it didn't seem like many ants were too concerned about this dead queen ant here. Usually the workers show visible signs of grieving over a dead queen. And from the looks of things, this queen's death wasn't too much of a topic. Finally, what could have happened here was that this queen could have actually died within the nest during a squabble with a fellow co-queen, which can happen in multi-queen colonies. Only time would tell if this queen was indeed the only egg-laying queen in our weaver ant collection. I tried my best to keep my hopes up. Little did I know, I would be getting my answer soon, as well as a whole lot more than I expected. Later that night, I checked up on the ants at the Oecophylla plant. The weaver ants had continued to store their brood. I could see pupae and now larvae in there. But have a look at these workers here. How exciting! This is actually the next stage of the nest building process. Workers will take shifts at pulling and holding the leaves together, using their strong mandibles and legs, while other workers move in with the glue bottles. See that worker there holding the larva? It's using the larva's silk to glue the leaves in place. This gluer ant touches the tip of the larva's head onto the leaf surface. At places, it needs the larva to attach silk, and it continues to do this all over the leaf. Using this careful procedure, soon the ants will be able to construct entire silk walls, which will be strong enough to bind the leaves together. The workers that act essentially as the living braces during the gluing process simply rotate shifts and take breaks when tired. Soon these leaves will be fused together, and the enclosed space will create a perfect environment for the colony to nest in. The transpiration will keep the inner cavities created nice and humid. So guys, basically the point of all this is that these weaver ants use child labor to create homes with built-in humidifiers. That pretty much sums up weaver ant life in a nutshell. Or a leaf shell, rather. But guys, look at what else was new. Not only was action happening at the Oecophylla plant, but remember how we also noticed the ants had a thing for our money tree? Well, looky here. It seems as though the ants had decided they needed a second leaf nest. How cool! Brace workers were stationed around, holding the leaves of the money tree together in various places. And sure enough, I also saw that the ants were assembling themselves within the cavernous leaf spaces the brace ants were creating. It was so cool! It kinda made me wish I was a weaver ant in this colony, hanging out in our luxury leaf tents. Although with my luck, I'd probably be the one ending up like this ant here, stuck between two leaves, being a brace ant. I wonder if they volunteer for this seemingly stressful task, or if they're appointed. Knowing ants though, it's probably the former. As the ants continue to establish their nesting areas within the created folds of the money tree and the Oecophylla plant, I checked up on the mother nest and noticed the workers shipping out the brood from within, carrying them up into the leaf nest locations into the trees above. It was strangely satisfying and almost therapeutic to watch the workers carrying the young up the branches and into the nests. It's kind of hard to explain, but watching ants do their thing always puts me in the most relaxing trance, and I could do it for hours. How about you guys? What is also funny is how counterproductive the ants can be sometimes, particularly when not everyone in the colony is in favor of a campaign. Some ants felt the old mother nest was still a better place for the brood, and were busy bringing brood back to the mother nest. Ant society is funny in that sometimes it takes some members a bit longer to be convinced, but it did seem the majority were bringing brood into the new homes. It wouldn't be long before the entire colony was on the same page. Speaking of the nests, the Oecophylla nest apparently needed some expansion, as I noticed some brace ants pulling together leaves at an adjacent location of the plant in place. It seemed these ants had plans of making this an epic multi-chambered high-rise condo. On the money tree, ants were also busy at work, fusing more leaves together. Look at that teamwork. Now here's something real cool, guys. Check this out. The ants continued to cooperatively work like this through the night, having 3 major projects happening at once. There were 2 separate crews for building each of the 2 nests, and within each crew, there were individual jobs. You had the ants as seen here, doing the bracing. And at times, multiple ants would latch onto each other to create stronger links. Ants that did the gluing. Ants transporting brood out of the mother nest and into the new nest. Again, so satisfying to watch. Ants acting as living bridges to make the lives of the brood transporting crews easier. Ants tending to the brood within the new nests. Even ants visiting the feeding stations to be food porters. Feeding members of the colony through mouth-to-mouth regurgitation, i.e. trophallaxis, as they work. What astounded me was their overall synergy. If you think about it, these ants communicate exclusively through pheromones, biochemicals produced from glands in their body, which carry specific messages that, when wafted around by many ants, cause the ants to perform these various tasks. But each task depends on the other, and even on the rate of progress. For instance, you couldn't have too many brood transporting crews, or else the new nests would completely fill up. And you couldn't expand the nests without enough brood, i.e. larvae, for gluing. So there needed to be a balance of sorts, of the rates at which the ants were operating, performing their various tasks. This was a sheer display of collective ant intelligence at work. Each ant individually, pretty basic. Collectively, due to the nature of how they communicate, they were a single brilliant mind. Little did I know, I was about to witness the mind-blowing creations of their collective brilliant mind the next day. The next morning, this was what I saw at the Oecophylla plant. Ants were everywhere, and their nest structure was now much more complex, having joined several groupings of leaves together. AC family, it was such a sight to behold. Look at that! They even had plans for a sunroof! Have you guys ever seen anything like it? Can you imagine how much work and coordination it must have taken for them to construct something this big overnight? I couldn't help but stare in amazement. Tons of brood had already been loaded into the nest, and workers were busy gluing the edges of the leaves together. The brace ants were still hard at work, and the traffic in and out of the nest was pretty impressive. And check out the nest at the money tree. Whoa! The ants looked so cozy in there, behind the silken wall between the leaves. As this wall was being woven, I could see the ants all huddled together in the exposed spaces. I knew when they were done this nest, we'd no longer be able to see them like this inside. This nest looked like it was taking on a neat slanted architecture, with a top balcony. Various spaces between the leaves were slowly but surely being blocked off with silk walls. I loved watching the weaving process. Even when I kept these ants 5 years ago, I wasn't able to see them spinning silk like we can here now with 4K video quality. When this silk wall is done, it will be completely opaque. Look at all those sleepy heads in there. Speaking of which, in case you were wondering if ants sleep, yes, they take many few-minute naps a day, but frequency depends on how much workforce is needed. The ants continue to construct their silken leaf fortresses through the day, working non-stop around the clock. They carried their larvae around like glue bottles. And it was amazing to think that the very lives of the entire colony depended on the children. In most animals, it's the adults who carry society. But in weaver ants, both young and adults cooperate and contribute equally for survival. And this weaver ant silk, which made up the fabric of weaver ant society, both literally and figuratively, was actually pretty amazing. It could also be used to patch up holes in the leaves, as you can see here. Incredible to think that somewhere in their evolutionary past, the larvae of these ants stopped using their silk to create cocoons. As you can see, the pupae are naked, and the workers started using it to glue leaf nests together. What's even more crazy, AC family, is this. Check it out. The silk is reusable. I noticed ants busy breaking off chunks of silk from their old mother nest and carrying the pieces up to incorporate into their new nests. How economical and efficient! Even weaver ants recycle. Just impressive. Now, as impressive as weaver ant silk is, I wondered how it would stand up against the elements, namely, rains. As you know, Vortexia here is a climate-controlled setup, and a great vortex of mist and rain blows through here every day. And guess what? Vortexia was due for its next rain shower. The skies rumbled, and suddenly, the rains came. The nests were pelted by the torrential rains, all the ants' work being tested against the tempest that blew through the lands. And suddenly, the rain stopped. How had the ants' newly constructed nests held up to the storm? I looked into Vortexia to see if the rains had destroyed their nests. Turns out, the ants were totally fine, and continued on their business as if nothing happened. Phew, what a relief. The silk walls they'd spun were surprisingly waterproof. As one might expect, the ants proved to be highly adapted to the wet life. Being tropical ants and all, I'm sure this was all pretty normal to them. I was happy to know these weaver ants would be totally okay, at least for now. I still didn't know if the colony had an egg-laying queen, nor if moving them in here would keep the Pharaoh ants at bay. But little did I know, the answers to those questions would be coming soon. It didn't take long for the weaver ants to completely move out of their mother nest, which was by now withered and unideal for nesting. And the whole colony had moved up into the trees, into one of the two new leaf nests. I decided to name this Oecophylla plant leaf nest Camp Hope, and this money tree leaf nest Camp Perseverance. Over the following several days, the colony continued to work hard at expanding both leaf nests. The ants were super strong in numbers, pulling these giant leaves like titans close together so that the gluing workers could fuse them. It wasn't long before Camp Hope became a huge, complex, multi-floored leaf fortress that I could only stop and marvel at as it all amazingly came together before our eyes. Camp Perseverance also underwent its ongoing expansion as the weaver ants pulled the money tree's long leaves together for gluing. I had a feeling Camp Hope would also be quite the leaf-top penthouse when they're all done. But AC family, over the next few days, there were a few surprises the ants revealed to me in Vortexia that truly filled my heart with joy and wonder. Okay, are you guys ready for this? First, some great news. As we'd hoped, now that Vortexia was completely conquered and run by the weaver ants, I had noticed that the once threatening and trespassing Pharaoh ants that had previously been visiting Vortexia's food station were no longer anywhere to be seen. I guess the Pharaoh ants felt the weaver ants' large numbers now would be too difficult for them to deal with, and have decided Vortexia to be too dangerous for them to overtake. This, of course, was such a relief. Speaking of food, I also learned quite a bit about what the ants loved to eat, and what they didn't. In terms of insects, the weaver ants weren't too fond of superworms, but were crazy over mealworms. They worked together carrying the huge mealworm carcasses back to the nest, where they would feast on it and eat up all that valuable protein. I loved watching the mealworms disappear into the darkness of Camp Perseverance. In terms of their sugar source, it took the colony a good 2 or 3 days to finish 1 cup of beetle jelly, at which point I would simply add another. Whoa, look at how much they love brown sugar flavor. Watching the ants feast was just so satisfying. I knew all these valuable carbs would provide the colony the energy they needed to work and continue constructing their massive leaf nests. After all, the amazing stuff weaver ants do day in and day out isn't easy. What I also found neat was that the sweet beetle jelly would lure in hungry fruit flies, which the weaver ants were quick to catch and bring back to the nest to eat. Now AC family, The second thing I discovered, remember when we spotted the dead wingless queen ant at the start of this video? It was scary to think that that queen was the only egg-laying queen of the colony, and we never knew if the colony had any egg-laying queens left. I told myself I'd just simply monitor the progress of the colony over the next few weeks and see if the colony was showing signs of decreasing in numbers. If they were decreasing in population, I knew they certainly did not have an egg-laying queen, and the colony would eventually, sadly, all die out over time. Well, AC family, I'm happy to report that not only have the weaver ants not decreased in population, but in just over a week of living in Vortexia, the colony has seemed to have exploded in population, necessitating the colony to create further expansions to Camp Hope and Camp Perseverance. And I'm talking big expansions. Take a look at how many leaves Camp Perseverance was made of now. And the population continued to grow so big that the ants eventually began working on a third construction project. Between the two, behold, a third nest I've called Camp Love. Isn't that just awesome, guys? A third leaf nest. How appropriate that there were 3 leaf nests, seeing as this Weaver Ant trilogy is a celebration of our 3 million subscriber milestone. Seems these Weaver Ants are just so festive and want to share in the celebration. And in case you still had doubts about the colony having an egg-laying queen, this third discovery truly shocked me. It seems the Vortexian rains had signaled a full-out nuptial flight. The colony didn't only have one princess, but had many princesses. Female elates emerging from the nest, hoping to mate. Look at those colors! One queen was a gorgeous bluish-green color, another caramel-colored, and another a golden yellow. I just couldn't get over how stunning these queen elates were. Don't you guys think? And if you might be questioning whether or not these queens were mating in Vortexia, well, I did see the presence of males. See those wings? Those are boy wings. And the ultimate clue that the queen elates were mating? Wings broken off, laying on the forest floor. Oh boy. Perhaps this is also why they decided to construct a third nest. Maybe this is how weaver ant colonies start. Queen elates mate nearby, then are joined by fellow sisters from the birth nest to start new nests in the vicinity. This might also explain why this species is notoriously difficult to start up in captivity from just a single queen ant. Perhaps they need the support of an entourage at startup. I bet the workers also help break off her wings. And so, AC family, it looks like our weaver ants are off to a great start in their lush jungle treetop kingdom of Vortexia. These ants were truly inspiring in many ways. Watching them form living bridges with their own bodies were testament to how devoted the ants were to helping their fellow ant, always focused on the greater good of the whole colony. They really showed an innate care and prioritization at ensuring the well-being of the entire colony, be they princess royalty, or ants holding babies spinning silk, or even ants just hanging around, standing guard. Every single member of the colony had an important purpose. It was a beautiful thing to witness. A perfect society in my books. And come on now, can I mention again how these ants recycle too? Oh, and I almost forgot. In our last video, you, the AC family, voted on the official name of this weaver ant colony. And I'm happy to announce that these ants are officially called the Emerald Empire. What a cute name, of which I highly approve. I will continue to update you guys on the progress of the Emerald Empire in Vortexia over time. Perhaps there will be more nests made, and if so, I'll be sure to let you guys know. For me, the ants of Vortexia were the perfect symbol of how hope, perseverance, and love were the 3 elements to a perfect world and creation of greatness. Thank you for watching. It's Ant Love forever. AC family, I've got to say, this has to be one of my top favorite ant colonies of all time. Did you enjoy part 3 of our Weaver Ant Trilogy celebration of 3 million subs? Guys, though this is the final part to our Weaver Ant Trilogy, this is of course not the last you'll be seeing of these ants. Only the beginning. And there's so much more ahead with the other ant colonies of the ant room. So you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button and bell icon for notifications now, so you don't miss out on this continuing ant story. And don't forget to hit the like button every single time, including now. It would really help a lot. Speaking of ants, it's officially nuptial flight season in the Northern Hemisphere, and a lot of you are catching queen ants now. And in case you didn't know, we've got all the top-of-the-line ant keeping gear for you ant keepers at all levels, from beginner to advanced, as well as a ton of new and exciting products for the ant keeping community, not available anywhere else. So head on over to AntsCanada.com and browse our shop. We ship worldwide and offer full email support if you need us. We also have ant colonies with a queen available in most regions. So go check us out and pick up your ant farm kit and ant gear today. If you're new to the channel and want to catch up on all your AntsCanada lore, feel free to binge watch this complete storyline playlist here, which traces the origins of all the ant colonies of the ant room, so you can follow their stories and better appreciate how these ant kingdoms came to be and why we love them so much. AC Inner Colony, I have left a hidden cookie for you here if you'd like to see a hidden video of deleted footage not included in today's episode. I ended up capturing so much gorgeous video of the Weaver ants doing their thing within Vortexia, so do check out that hidden video. And now it's time for the AC question of the week. Last week we asked, what color can a Weaver ant queen be? Congratulations to Kaylin Tyler, who correctly answered reds, neon green, bluish, browns, and yellows. Congratulations, Kaylin, you just won a free ebook handbook from our shop. In this week's AC question of the week, we ask, what is your favorite thing about these Weaver ants? Leave your answer in the comment section and you could also win a free ebook handbook from our shop. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 AM Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love forever.